Why don't we start at the other end to Brett Ratten, and congratulations Rats on the captaincy. What is it like sharing the stage with 5 other absolutely champions of the Carlton Football Club?
It's a great honour, just to be besides. I didn't see Hawley play and I didn't see Ken play and seen Trevor play a bit, so he was a great player, and Glascott helped me out. When I was just a young bloke coming into the club, he was there to give me all the right directions and tell me how to play and keep your head down and things like that. So he's been a great help, and Seko's been a great mate. So it's a real honour.
As a young kid, who did you support and what jumper did you wear? Who were your idols as a kid?
Well, I'm a bit like Richard Pratt. I started barracking for Carlton when I was 4. My father took me to a game of football, Carlton versus Melbourne. I was hooked. How's my business going? Yeah, no, it's going all right. No, not as good as Richard's. No, I was going to say, it didn't end up the same fairy tale as Richard, but I hope I can barrack for Carlton as long as he's been doing. But I went down to Carlton when I was 17. I was invited down before the draft was introduced, part of the zone. My parents tell the story that they moved to Thomastown, where I grew up, so that we were in the Carlton zone. That sounds all right until we work out I was 18 months when there, so either they're very, very clever or they're just making it up. And Brian Quirk, who's another great player for Carlton Football Club, he coached me in under-19s. And when I had the opportunity to train with the seniors and then get put on their list, and they asked me what number did I want to wear, and without hesitation I asked for Brian's number 32. So he was an enormous influence on me, Brian Quirk.
We've got two of our Hall of Famers up here who actually came to Carlton after they could have been picked up by other clubs. Ken Hands down at Geelong, and Hawley at Footscray in those days. What happened with you, Ken? How did we finish up getting you to Carlton?
Geelong were out of the competition during the war years, and I was playing under-18 competition. I had 3 years in the under-18, finished at 16, and then interest started to come from Melbourne teams. Geelong didn't show any interest whatsoever, never ever had a visit from them. And finally I left employment in Geelong to go to Melbourne. You can hear the story. The Vacuum Oil Company was part of Melbourne at the time, and I was offered £2.10 a week to work at the vacuum, catch the 6:15 from Geelong and the 6:15 back at night. And then Ken Luke, Newton Chandler, Perce Bentley came down, and I was offered £3.10 a week to travel up from Geelong on the 20 to 8 and back on the 6:08. Before all this, of course, I had to ride a bike 5 miles to and from the station each day.
Geez, I hope Cooter's listening to this.
Oh, you wanted me to keep going? Right.
Oh, you're on a roll, keep going.
Well, interesting thing, as a kid, we lived next door to the Hardimans, and for you people that know the Hardimans from the mid-30s, they were great Geelong players, and as a kid I used to sit in the gutter waiting for them to come home at night and take a day. And it was to my disappointment that Geelong didn't really show any interest. But I've never really regretted my move to Carlton. It's been a great club. It is a great club. I've made a lot of friends there, both with the Carlton boys and with other members of the league. And I'm afraid I'm a bit different to some of the people these days. I'm a bit like a one dog, one bone, I love the club. I have no reason to leave it. And let's face it, we couldn't either in those days. We had to stay. But no, it's been a great club, and it's been good to me, because I think you only get out of it what you put into it.
Kevin Hall, 3-time premiership player at Carlton. No,
Obviously, I know now why...
Can't kick left foot, that's why.
I went over to Carlton as a natural left footer. That's what Jack Collins and Ted Whitten told me to do. I trained out there for a month and they said, go over to Carlton and just tell them you're left footer, you work in Footscray, and even though I was residentially bound to Carlton in living in Coburg. So I went over there, I trained for him, I went over there and trained the first night as a left footer and the socks down and the baggy pants, all this advice. I've got to say, the Bulldogs did one thing for me. They changed my birthday for me. They said, let's just bring that birthday back from May back to January, and I still don't know at Carlton whether or not they got me registered as a January birthday or not, but it made me ineligible for the thirds. So that was a tactic. They thought, well, have a look at this bloke. They look at how bloody hopeless he is, and he can't kick, and he still couldn't kick right through his career. And they'd be able to say, well, look, we'll give a clearance. But I think somebody gave me up because I'd been picked to play in the Victorian CYMS Open Age team that was playing in Adelaide that weekend. It was the Queen's birthday, or a month before Queen's birthday. So I went to training at Carlton for that first week as this natural left footer, and socks down. And you blokes don't realise how good you got it today because they bring the chequebook out. Well, it's a bit hard to have a chequebook in the shower when the coach walks up to you and grabs you by the throat, and I can't say, ladies, what he actually said, but he got me by the throat and he said, the game's up, I know what you're up to. And so that was the end of it. So I played for Carlton, and Ken just said to me then, what would your life be like if you'd have gone to Footscray? And you look back and think about it, it might have been a little different. I don't know. We'll never know. John seems to reckon that it might be better where I am now, and I think I might go along with that.
All Hall of Famers, all Premiership players, ladies and gentlemen, and Trevor, Keogh and Michael Sexton. The flags, are they the outstanding memories for both of you? Trevor?
Yes. I played in two winning ones, and I missed one losing one because of an injury, but yeah, I guess they're the greatest things you remember about the football side of it, but lots of other things you remember, and the greatest thing is the friendships you make and the mates you have and the mates we still have here. And, you know, I just look around here and we sort of, over the years, I know Ken Hands, I know Brett Ratten very well. I know Sticks and I know lots of other people because I was there for 20 years. And they're the things that I really treasure. I enjoyed that too.
Secco, a lot of us can remember, but what are your vivid memories, the memories that you relive in that last day in 1995?
Yeah, obviously a premiership's what everybody plays for, and it's at the club for 10 or 12 years. So if you're there that long, you really want to play a premiership. And I think I always thought we had a great group of players, obviously, and we had a few players who were real freaks in that time. 5 or 6 players who were absolute, legends in the league and that sort of thing. And if we hadn't have, I guess we could have all looked back and thought that was, a period that really. Some people may have thought another premiership or two. So my big memories really in '95 was that, particularly the year before, I think we had a great side and we blew it toward the end. I think a lot of players were thinking that year that stop us. We had a great side, and it was more than anything, it was an absolute relief, I think, in the end to get the premiership. And anyone really let up and enjoyed the year as much as they perhaps could have until.
Rats, over since '88, the really great players. There's been a lot, but who are the you? Carlton on the playing side of things?
I'd have to say Glascott when I first got there. Ken Hunter sort of helped me out a fair bit. Just sort of, just the Sunday mornings, the boys would have a few beers, but you'd go for a run with them and they'd sort of just talk to you and ask you how you went and watched how you played the first half of the second half of the twos, and before they ran out, and they sort of gave you a bit of advice. Sort of, I always admired Wayne Johnson, just the way he played finals. It was just, unbelievable for someone just to be able to turn it on like that and have an influence in the in a game, especially in a big game. I just see Braddles and Sticks and all these players that have just been super players around the club, and Diesel, just that type of player around has sort of had an influence. Just watching them train and the way they prepare is sort of, just for our young blokes, they were just unbelievable. They did everything that they had to do, and it showed in their performance.
Ken, the same question. The great players back in when you first played, and Ken played in a premiership at Carlton when he was 18 at centre-half forward in the 45 grand final, followed up 2 years later at centre-half forward in the 49 grand final. Now, 47 grand final, sorry. Now, in the 45 grand final, Carlton finished 4th in the season, the first club ever to win the premiership from that position. There must have been some great players in that era, Ken.
Well, there was a lot of players coming back from the war in 45. Carlton, just to give you an idea how it can happen, at Essendon around about the 5th game, Essendon defeated Carlton by 100 points. And later on in the season, when Essendon played Carlton at Carlton, they beat us by 3 points with a couple of seconds to go. The difference was Carlton made the 4, Essendon missed out. And Carlton went on to win 13 out of the 14 games and finally win the premiership. Colin said it was the first time that a club had won the premiership from 4th position.
I always see you at the local milk bar near Channel 7. The first thing that Hawley and I just look, you don't have to say anything, what's happening down at the club. I mean, it's always the first thing. I look at you and you are Carlton through and through. I know that John just mentioned the Footscray thing or whatever else, but it does invoke great passion, doesn't it, the place?
Well, I think when you grow up with it, and Ken said one dog, one bone, and I probably had an opportunity to leave Carlton in 71 to go and play under that 10-year rule with Brass had finished coaching in 71. Went on was 72 actually. We went on a trip around the world, and it was a great trip. We played games in London and Singapore, and I mean, I just couldn't bring myself to go away. And I think, once you get somewhere and you're really devoted and you love a club and you love the individuals that you're there with, I couldn't see it as being any other place, and yet I really wanted to be somewhere else early in my career. But you might say I saw the light, and then the light got brighter where I was, and I loved it. But I think every player, that's what I think's so great about our club. That the players, everywhere we go to Perth, we go to Adelaide, even Jono, and not so much in Brisbane because of the lack of players that actually came from there. But when we go to all those clubs, it's just fantastic to see the Bazastos and the different, like Roy. And I think when you look at Sticks and Braddles and these guys, had the opportunity to go back to Adelaide and didn't do it. I find that amazing that was their love. Everybody said, if you're a betting person, you would have said they'll go back to Adelaide, and they didn't do it. And that tells you something about what a great club it is. And I think everywhere we go, we see that. And I think it's just a wonderful tribute to this footy club and the culture and the attitude and the expectations that you've got to win. And I think for anybody that comes to the club, for the young players, they're going to enjoy that. And they're going to experience this culture that maybe isn't in a lot of other clubs.
Trev, I think the modern day planning of beating oppositions, so many coaches put things into it. You and Trevor and Hawley both played in that famous 72 grand final where Big Nick changed things around. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Trev?
I wasn't all that impressed before the game because I always thought of myself as not a rover. I don't think I could rove for nuts, but I always thought of myself as a centreman or a ruck rover, someone who could read the play a bit and not be in under the packs and stuff like that. But anyway, I had to start in the forward pocket, and Gags was the first rover. And they made, I think, Barry Armstrong was a ruck rover with Swan Mackay, something like that. And so I wasn't very impressed, but as it turned out, in the first quarter we kicked 8 or 10 goals in the first quarter. So everything worked for us that day. But Gags.
Who was your opponent?
One of the
Trevor?
days.
Who was your opponent, Trevor?
I had Sheets, yeah, and he was in the back pocket. But he got moved. He got moved very shortly after.
What's your memories?
Gags wouldn't change. Well, I was stuck in the forward pocket. He wouldn't change.
Your memories of the same game, Kev?
So it was interesting because right throughout, I mean, Richmond became a very difficult side to beat in the, and we've seen it. If you'd have said which is the biggest rivalry you had in that era, it was Richmond, and they were pretty arrogant about it, I can assure you. But it was the day Richmond beat us in the second semi-final. The next morning we're standing around after training. Nick's got about 10 of us standing around at the centre of the ground, and he said, "Well, I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to play St Kilda next week in the preliminary final." And he said, "We'll beat them because we always beat them." Well, we beat them by 10 points in a real battle, I can tell you. But he didn't change the side. He left the side as it was the way we lined up against Richmond. But he said, "I can tell you what we're going to do in the grand final. We're going to change it. Purse is going to be in the first ruck." And he didn't say Trevor was going to be in the forward pocket. I didn't hear that. But and he said that Purse is in the first ruck. I was going to be ruck rover. Nick was going to be in the forward pocket, and he revamped the side because we hadn't beaten them 3 times in the year. And he thought, well, there's no way we're going to line up the same way because we won't beat them. So he changed the side around, and it was just amazing how, I think it was 18 goals, I think, at half time. And 18 to 12, and finished up, I think it was 50 goals for the game. It was 29 goals or something to 22, or 28 to 22, I think it was at the end, with the right side in front. But it was an amazing, he's a very smart man, Nick, a great coach, great player, and a great coach, very smart in his planning. And I vividly remember standing in the middle of the ground listening to him say this, which was an amazing thing to say 2 weeks before a grand final.
So we could talk for hours, but I know Brett's got to move off to do his the membership drive. Rats, before you do go and we begin our presentation to the players, Saturday week against the Saints, you pull that number 7 Guernsey on, you always wear your heart on the sleeve. What will be going through your mind, though, now that with the added responsibility that you follow so many great players and so many great names at the Carlton Football Club as the captain of the Blues?
Firstly, hopefully my wife's had the baby.
I was going to mention that actually, Rats. Any news on that front?
Sorry?
Any news on that front?
No, not yet. No.
Right.
No, it'll be a big moment. Just to start the season off. I think the players are looking forward to starting the year off and getting everything going. We've sort of played these trial games now, and you want to play these games and get off to a good start. And I think the boys have sort of been training pretty hard on the track lately, and
Okay, we might move on with the first of our presentations to our first batch of players. Our 6 Hall of Famers will be sticking with us after the presentation for a few more questions and a bit more of a chat. But we thought we'd move along with the first batch of players due to the fact that Brett has to head off with Glenn Mann. Thanks a lot, Ken. I'm sure from your day, the Guernsey presentation. I'll just... No, take us back. I mean, can you remember your first Guernsey? I mean,
Thursday night they got it.
Just ask you, just a few more moments with our Hall of Famers. Your first Guernsey, Ken?
No, the first Guernsey, I played about the 5th game, I think, against Fitzroy, and I was thrown the Guernsey on Thursday night and said, "This is yours, why are you here? Thanks very much," and away you go.
Secco, if you had some advice to some of the young players tonight, what would be that piece of advice?
I've said it all before, but it's a great opportunity ahead of you. Particularly at this club, it's a very successful club, and you can not only get a lot out of the ball side of things, but also elsewhere in life. And I reckon you get too many better opportunities as your life goes on, so you want to make the absolute most of it. It can end sometimes quicker than you think as well. So you want to put in whatever you can and make sure you suck as much out of it as you possibly can.
David, take your memories back, mate, especially for those first year players or the ones that have got their first jumper.
Yeah, I guess that my memories of Carlton up here, and I'm a Carlton man all the way through, as everyone up here is, as other than Kevin, John. being a Carlton supporter since I was 4-year-old, the only thing I ever wanted to do was play for Carlton. And I look around when I come here tonight and I'm still like a 16-year-old. Like Keith McKenzie I see here, who was just a great person and someone that helped me a lot, and Shane O'Sullivan, who's here, he was bashed me around the head a bit when I was a bit of a and those sorts of people who just, Carlton, it just means so much that, as Michael said, if you get a chance, you just got to grab it and do whatever it takes whenever you can just to be at this club, because it is the greatest sporting club, as Jack calls it, but it's the greatest footy club that you ever want to be at.
Yeah, absolutely. Well spoken, David. And to Trevor, Keogh and Kevin Hall, the jumper. What does it mean to you both, gentlemen?
Came down from Bendigo. Bert Deacon was in charge as a secretary and Jack Rout was chairman of selectors. I think probably prior to me coming down, which was about in 1969, 1970, they'd already started a tradition and a culture and a professionalism around the club from the point of view that they used to try and recruit character and build the character on the blokes they recruited. And, I think I've got a lot to thank those sort of guys, and then the ones that continued it on, John Nichols and Jezza and so on, and Wolsey, and there's heaps of them that you could name. But, that tradition, I think, started way back, and it's our responsibility to continue that on.
I think some of those names that Trevor mentioned in Bert Deacon, that time when we first got our first jumper for the pre-season presentation, we'd go for a little picnic or a barbecue down at Jack Rout's. A lot of humble start, but it was a pie and sauce or a barbecue with a sausage on sizzle at Jack Rout's place at Balnarring, and we did that traditionally for years. And all you're worried about, and that's when you're a young bloke, is to will I have that? Will I be there again next year? That was the thing that always really was on my mind. Will I be there the next year and the next year? And I think that's something that we all want to think about. All the young fellas, they're keen, and don't take it for granted. And I know it's what everybody said here. I think this football club, with all the programs in place, there's one thing I can be guaranteed to tell you, and any player that's ever played for Carlton, I think they've come here and they've spent years, whether it's 1 year, 2 years, 5 or 10 or 15, they walk away from this club a better person than they came. It's something that you can all look forward to in the future, and I'm sure that the players here that have been here for a few years now would agree with that. And I just wish all the young fellas all the very best of luck for this year, as well as the older guys who probably carry the fort a little bit more. But fellas.
Well spoken, Paulie. Ladies and gentlemen, as I say, it's been a humbling experience for me, being die-hard Carlton, and sharing the stage with legends of the football club. Would you please thank our Hall of Famers? I know he's had to hop off to do his footy show commitments. Brett Ratten, ladies and gentlemen, the captain of the Carlton